He stood alone in the dimly lit attic, dust particles dancing in the slivers of sunlight that pierced through the cracked, grimy windows. Ethan's heart raced with a mix of grief and curiosity as he rummaged through his late grandfather's belongings, the wooden floorboards creaking under his shifting weight. The air was thick with the scent of mothballs and aged wood, a forgotten world preserved in cobwebs and shadows. The old cedar chest in the far corner, bound with tarnished brass and adorned with intricate carvings of unfamiliar symbols, seemed to call to him, a silent siren song in the sea of relics. It was a chest he'd never seen before, one that his grandfather had carefully hidden beneath layers of old blankets and newspapers. As he brushed away the dust, tracing his fingers over the faded engravings, a strange warmth emanated from it, sending a shiver down his spine. He hesitated for a moment before lifting the heavy lid, its hinges groaning in protest. Inside, nestled among yellowed letters tied with fraying ribbons and sepia-toned photographs of stern-faced ancestors, lay an ancient map. Its edges were frayed, the parchment brittle yet surprisingly intact, and the inked markings depicted a landscape he didn't recognize. Ethan's eyes widened in awe and intrigue. The map beckoned to him, whispering promises of secrets long buried and adventures yet to unfold. Ethan was a cautious soul, a 17-year-old who preferred the predictability of books and the solace of his sketchpad to the unpredictable tides of teenage life. His dark hair often fell over his deep-set green eyes, which held a glimmer of intelligence and a hint of melancholy. The recent loss of his grandfather, the one person who seemed to understand his quiet nature, had left a void that echoed with unspoken words and unfinished stories. While his peers chased fleeting trends and social media fame, Ethan found comfort in the tangible world of art and the rich history his grandfather often shared. The discovery of the map ignited a spark within him, a yearning, not just for adventure, but for a connection to the man he admired so deeply. Determined to honor his grandfather's memory, he resolved to follow the map's cryptic directions, believing it might lead him to a final message or hidden treasure left behind. The first point on the map led him to the old oak tree at the edge of town, a towering sentinel that had stood for centuries. As dusk painted the sky with hues of crimson and violet, Ethan traced the carved symbols on the tree's gnarled bark, feeling an inexplicable chill despite the warm summer breeze. He noticed a small indentation, a compartment concealed within the wood. Inside, he found a rusted key attached to a note in his grandfather's elegant handwriting. The journey begins with understanding one's roots. The following day, Ethan's excitement mingled with apprehension as he ventured further, the map guiding him to places steeped in mystery and forgotten by time. His next destination was an abandoned well on the outskirts of an old farmland, its stone walls overgrown with moss and ivy. The sky was overcast, casting a gray pallor over the landscape. As he approached, the sound of whispers drifted upward from the darkness below, faint, ethereal voices that spoke in a language he couldn't comprehend yet felt deep within his bones. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Logic told him it was the wind, but his instincts screamed otherwise. Shaking off the unease, he leaned over the edge, and a sudden gust sent his hat tumbling into the abyss. Startled, he stepped back, only to find a small leather-bound journal at his feet that hadn't been there moments before. The journal's pages were filled with sketches and notes eerily similar to his own handwriting, detailing events and memories he didn't recall experiencing. Confusion and fear gnawed at him, but the desire to uncover the truth pushed him onward. Sleep became elusive as nightmares invaded his rest. Visions of shadowed figures lurking just beyond sight, their eyes glowing with malice and haunting melodies that echoed in the silence. Fatigue etched itself into his features. Dark circles framed his once bright eyes, and his usual calm demeanor frayed at the edges. His best friend, Maya, noticed the change. A spirited artist with a keen intuition, she confronted him during lunch. "Ethan, you're scaring me." "What's going on?" she demanded, her brow furrowed with concern. He wanted to confide in her but feared sounding insane. "Just dealing with some family stuff," he mumbled, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The third point on the map was a forgotten graveyard concealed within the dense forest that bordered the town. As he made his way through the thicket, the canopy above shrouded him in twilight. The gravestones stood crooked and worn, the inscriptions eroded by time. To his horror, he discovered several bearing his surname, dates overlapping impossibly, some even marking deaths in the future. Panic rose within him as shadows seemed to slither between the tombstones, and the ground felt unstable beneath his feet. A distant bell tolled, though no church was near. The realization that he was tampering with forces beyond his understanding began to sink in. Determined to break the cycle, Ethan decided to destroy the map, hoping to sever whatever connection it had to him. Back home, he attempted to burn it, but the flames refused to catch. He tried tearing it apart, but the parchment resisted, unscathed by his efforts. Desperation turned to dread as the map's ink began to shift and change before his eyes, revealing a new path leading directly to his own house. The walls around him creaked and groaned. Whispers echoed from empty rooms, calling his name in his grandfather's voice, distorted and laced with malice. Objects moved on their own accord. A family portrait crashing to the floor, pages of books flipping in a frenzy. The boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred as unseen forces closed in. Maya, sensing something was terribly wrong, arrived at his doorstep. "Ethan, let me in," she pleaded, pounding on the door. He hesitated, afraid of dragging her into the darkness that enveloped him. As the door swung open, the house fell eerily silent. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan whispered, his voice barely audible. Maya's eyes widened as she took in the chaos around them. "What happened? We need to get out of here," she urged, grabbing his hand. A cold wind swept through the corridor, slamming the door shut behind her. The map materialized in Ethan's hand, now glowing with an otherworldly light. "It's too late," he said, tears welling in his eyes. The floor beneath them cracked, darkness oozing from the fissures like tendrils reaching out. "We can fight this together," Maya insisted, her grip tightening. Summoning all his courage, Ethan realized that the curse fed on isolation and fear. "You're right," he said, a newfound resolve in his voice. Together they retraced his steps, confronting each location with a defiance he hadn't felt before. At the well, they shouted into the abyss, their voices overpowering the whispers. In the graveyard, they honored the forgotten names, acknowledging the past without fear. Piece by piece, the hold of the curse weakened. As dawn broke, they returned to the old oak tree, the final step in their journey. The tree stood silent, the carvings now glowing softly. Placing the key into a hidden lock, the trunk opened to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside lay a letter addressed to Ethan. "My dearest grandson, if you're reading this, you've faced the darkness that once consumed me. The curse is a burden passed down, but it can be broken through courage and connection. Remember, you are not alone." Tears streamed down Ethan's face as he read the words. The oppressive weight that had clung to him lifted, and the world seemed brighter, the colors more vivid. The map crumbled to dust in his hands, its purpose fulfilled. Turning to Maya, he smiled genuinely for the first time in days. "Thank you," he whispered. She returned the smile, relief evident in her eyes. Unbeknownst to them, a shadow watched from afar, its form dissipating with a sigh. The cycle had ended, and with it, Ethan found not just closure but a renewed appreciation for the bonds that anchored him to the world. The curse, once a terror, had led him to understand the strength found in facing one's fears alongside those who care.